Recording. All right. Welcome everyone again. Today is day 2 of our automation class. Today we going to work with Postman, and the idea of today's class is have the more practical, hands-on experience rather than theoretical slides and information. We going actually to let me open the summary. So we going to build the request. We going to walk through responses. I'm going to explain how the environment variable can be used across the tests and across the requests. We're going to learn how to authorize our request using Postman, and we will actually do some scripting. Hey, I hope everyone likes that. We will do actually some coding, but don't worry, everything will be super simple. And if we will find it a little bit more complicated, we're gonna go through that again and again. So today we actually go into code, guys. But the thing is, we're gonna use test snippets. It's a very handy tool of Postman which can make the coding part easier. So we do want to write some tests using a Postman API. So we're not only scripting today, we're also writing API tests actually related to which are coming from the library, the standard library of Postman. We're going to review how the test results look like, and we also will see how the test can be applied to collections, folders, and requests. So it's a brief summary of what we're gonna do today. I found these exercises on the official Postman documentation, and it's pretty interesting. I think you'll like it. So that's our first exercise, guys. We have to install Postman, and I will paste this link in the chat. And the chat is one sec, is here. So I'm expecting to see 20 plus answers in the chat that yes, I installed and it's working and it's fine, I can launch it. So let's do it now, guys. All people has to have installed Postman application on their stations, on their machines now. And if you're ready, if you see that application is launching, then you please let me know. So I'll see how many people are ready. Somebody already installed it. Edward, make sure you have a latest version. You guys check if you need to update it. And guys, please don't type in Skype. I prefer to read it here in the GoToWebinar chat section. It'll be easier. So the purpose of installing from the official site is that the version will be the latest. So it will support all the stuff we're gonna do today. Make sure if you already have installed it, it's not the Chrome extension. It's a standalone app. So I have 3 people ready. Six, 1, 4. I think you're on the right way. 1 sec. The version is here. 614 is the latest. So you're good to go. Alright. Somebody's still downloading, don't worry, we will wait a little bit. So I guess maybe 10 people ready? Yeah, about 10 people ready. We have about 15 to go. Alright. We have about 15 people to go. Guys, if you install the Postman, please type it that you're ready in chat. And make sure you can use it, meaning that you launch it, you say something, because we're gonna use it today a lot. Yes, that is more like exercise work today. Good question. Margarita, the chat is in go to webinar section, is somewhere below the for you it will be like audio settings. So you have to have a chat and questions section. And guys, yes, it's a good question regarding sign up. Yes, please create the account for it. Yeah, it will be great if you will be signing in the Postman. So install and create account and logging in Postman. We can do 30 days trial actually. Nadezhda should be enough. Muhammad, I think you're on the right way. Almost there, guys. Like 5 more people, something. So if you're done, you have to say something like this, and make sure you log in. So you see this circle, and it doesn't say that you have to log in. Tools to choose from setup. Mohammed, we're not choosing anything yet. I think you're talking about some window which asking you what we're gonna create, so we're not creating anything yet. So I think you're fine. Yeah. Alright. Somebody also finished. Alright, the majority is done, I guess. Masha, can you see the chat of GoToWebinar? You have link there. I hope you can see the chat in GoToWebinar. Thank you, Stas. Yeah, link is in Skype also, Masha, so please use that one. Right, 2 more minutes, guys. We will start in 2 minutes. I think somebody's still installing. Okay, let me actually do it this way. I think you can see something like this, so you just can close it for now. Okay. So guys, if somebody has the problems related to installation, don't worry, you have a recorded session. And please stay tuned with the class. Today we're gonna review a lot of stuff that you can repeat afterwards. And there will be homework as well, so you will have a lot of time for practice. All right. So after installation, we will do a quick review. So we already been talking about Postman as the comprehensive and complete solution for API development and testing. So we've been already talking about collections, workspaces, and building tools. So we will actually practice with the collections and tools, and later on we will maybe practice with the workspaces as well. So as I said, I use the official documentation of Postman, and Postman allow to design and mock APIs, also like to debug, also automating testing, documentation, monitoring, and publishing information about APIs. So we will start to use newly developed features of Postman. So before it was more simple tool, and today we're gonna get familiar with more comprehensive stuff. I covered the Google as the very big source of public APIs available to everyone, and today we're actually gonna use it. So please navigate to this page, and I will do also so one of the APIs is allowing to convert street address to geographic coordinates. So you're giving a street number, like an apartment number, not apartment, but house building number, and then it gives you latitude and longitude of the location. The link I provided is actually the page about this API. It's called Geocoding API of the Google Maps. And this is the official documentation, so we will learn how to use it and pretty much understanding what is said there. So first of all, we're looking for the URI of the API, right? So it says here geocoding request and response is here. So for example, you're providing the address of the location you want to locate, and JSON response include the converted address into coordinates. So in this URI here, we can see the endpoint, we can see the parameters used for the request, and we also see that we have to provide our API key. So here I ask you to create the Google account. So that Google account will actually be used for getting the API key. So for each of you, the API key will be different. And this is how you'll be authorized to perform this request. So to do that, please navigate to this page and find this section here with this URI. After clicking on this area where it says your API key, you have to see this kind of pop-up here, where you can select the project. So you have to have already predefined project like I have, or you will be asked to create one. And the message is we couldn't load any credentials for this project. You can visit the developers console. Developers console will actually give us that API key. So right now the exercise is to get the API key from the Google. So as long as I don't have any projects here, so I have a project but I don't have credentials for them, I gotta go to developers console. So I'm clicking on developers console, and we can see that a project is needed to you. So if there is no project, we cannot see any enabled APIs and services. So the interface asks us to create one. So I'm clicking create, and we're already on the dashboard of the project, but we don't have any project, so I'm clicking create again. And here I'm specifying the name of my first project, so I can name it YMR Alex project, yes. So after assigning a name of the project, we can see that the project ID is also been generated. And we don't need any organization here, so we just can click create. So my project is creating now. Take some time. All right, project should be created. So now I'm gonna back to the page I sent in the chat. And since now I have created a project, I can click on this area with the API and I can see my newly created project here in this drop-down list. But credentials are still not there. So I'm going to console again. And yeah, after that, I already in my project, so you can see the drop-down list here, Alex project that I created just now. And in credentials section, I can create credentials. I have to select API key, so this is what I'm interested in. I want to get the API key for my project. And API key is created. So this sequence of characters is my key, which I can use for request to Google APIs. Here's a button to copy it to my computer. Then I'm going back to that documentation. And after clicking again, yes, so now it has credentials here and I can insert it. So now I can see that it's fulfilled with the API keys I just generated. So after this, I can copy the whole URI with all the parameters I need. Then I'm going back to the Postman and I want to paste it here and I want to send the request. This API project was not found. API project might have deleted. Okay, that's probably wrong API key then. But it shouldn't be wrong one. Maybe I selected there. Very bad one. The ID of the project is 102, which is this one. Okay, trying again, guys. You can start trying from your end already. May have been deleted. Maybe the problem is because I used the same project name. Should I remove the whole project? So guys, please try from your end and I will fix it from my end. And let's go from there. I see somebody typing questions. URL has to be pasted here. That's one of the questions somebody asked. Do you see where to put the copied link? Alright, yeah. Dariana, maybe you have to prompt the payment, but it actually has to be free. Google just asked for the confirmation of payment because most of the APIs here are not free. Yeah, so probably the case. But don't worry, you will not be charged for this request. It's totally free. Alright, now I have to figure out my stuff. I'll stop sharing for a minute, guys. Let's see. Geocoding. All right, good. So one more step, guys. This is when you're starting from scratch, you have to write down everything I done. So it is the navigation menu of the Google APIs page, and we have to navigate to API and Services dashboard. And we do have to enable APIs and services. So before even trying to requests, we have to enable API and services. So clicking on this button on the dashboard. In the search, we're looking for geocoding API. The API we're gonna use. And in your case, it has to be enabled here. So in my case, it's managed. In your case, it's gonna be enabled. So after enabling, you have to see kind of metrics here. So the same API key is using this link, and we'll do it again. Paste in the postman and sending the request. Type in the chat who was able to get first response. All right, Edward, thank you. Anwar works. Again, where to enable. All right, once again, guys, showing somebody didn't get where to enable. One sec. So Google APIs. How I did get there, right? From the link I provided. Once you're clicking on the API key, it should go to your console. All right, one sec. Console is here. I actually created this link for you guys. Sorry about that, I forgot. So yeah, console of the Google Cloud. Go in there. Billing. Okay, so from console, you're selecting your project which you created, and go to API overview here. APIs are here. And when you're on the Google Cloud console and API and services, you also can navigate it from here, from the navigation menu. It's right here. So here is enable API and services. We don't see. All right, guys. Once again, from the chat, from the link I posted, console of the Google Cloud API section is here in the middle. Go to API overview. So we are in API and services and dashboard. You can also navigate it from the navigation menu here, APIs and services, and enable APIs and services. Click on it, Geo coding API in the search, and enable it here. So API will be enabled. Very often turns black. I'm a little bit fast. Alright, I will try to be more, maybe it's something with the internet connection or something, but I'll be much slower. Alright guys, post in the chat who was able to get the response. I already see a couple of people was able to do it. Alright, Alexander, thank you. Vitaly. Stanislav, good job. Muhammad, where you lost? The idea is to get the API key from Google Cloud, provide it as a parameter to your request, execute request in the Postman. Alright, showing again how to enable API. We're clicking on it, the link is in the chat, so console cloud Google. Go into the console. We have API sections here. Go to API overview. Enable APIs and services. Geocoding API and enable it. Mohammed, Dariana, Svetlana, guys, any questions? You say what we should do after enable API. After enable API, you getting the API key, which is from the first link in the documentation. So developers google.com of the documentation of the API of the geocoding. Now, after you enable the API, you will be able to insert your credentials here. So you're clicking on this section of your API key. Now you can select your project, your credentials, and now you can insert it. Next section, geocoding. Dmitry, the task is to execute the request and get the response. So when you have API key, you can copy the whole request. The execute request in the Postman. Yeah. Yuri, done. Thank you. Not. Dariana, your request is still denied, probably because you didn't enable the API. You enable it. and the key is there. Somebody told that the key is actually not necessarily. Let me try without the key actually. So this API works even without the key, guys. So it has to be. It can work both. Geocoding API is enabled. Let me try. Right, guys. Somebody said that there's the font is too small. Let me try to make it larger, like 18 or something. Okay. Okay. Yeah, so I'm going to change the font for Postman. Yes, Nadezhda, you have to create a new project. Copy Postman. In the Postman, the link is here. Evgenia, it's here. The URI address, the URI location is here. Dmitry, ready. Thank you. Dariana, you still cannot get the response? Are you sure you tried with the API key was enabled? I found the key, but it's still not working. That is interesting. Okay, Evgenia got it. So you got the response. Good. Who else? Only Dariana left. No. Alright, guys, please pause again who was not able to get any response. Alright. Dariana still no. Alright. Dariana, it said that it's not authorized or something? What is the error? Request denied. Alright, I think I gotta help you after the class. Don't worry. Please participate the rest of the class and we will figure out why it's happening. Alright, I can see that a lot of people done. After clicking Postman, I see create new. Just close that window, Mohammed, and you can see the address line for the URI. Alright, I think I have about 2 people to help after class. The rest was able to make this exercise. So the idea is that we created our project in the Google Cloud. Then this project allows us to be authorized to perform requests to the Google APIs. Now we can see that now we actually got familiar with the Postman a little bit. So we are some of us were able to execute the first request, which is a request to the geocode, and we can see that if we will click to params button here, we see that we have a parameter address, right? And also if we will have the whole URI with the key, there's also let's use the whole one actually. One sec. Insert, copy, and paste it here. Yes, so this is what I want to say, that we have 2 parameters here, address and the key. So providing this information to the get request we're performing, so we're selecting the verb get here, there's drop down list get. We're sending the request and the API responds us with the JSON, and the structure of the JSON we're already familiar. So in this section of the Postman, we can see our status of the response. So as we remember, the 200 is okay. So that's what we're looking for all of our APIs. And we have a time of the response. So we also, some of the tests also include the time of the response. So if the response is too slow, we definitely want to file a bug against that and ask developers to figure out why it's happening. The idea is that in address, we providing in address parameter, we provide a value with the address. We want to get the location from the API. We want to get the location of. So in this case, we have 2 keys here. In the JSON response, we have a key called geometry, and geometry has also a JSON object called location. And in location, we have 2 key value pairs, where the name is latitude and longitude, and this is the values we're looking for. So for those who are able to talk with this API, please send me the JSON response with the coordinates of the Partnov Computer School. So you have to change the parameter, you'll have the response, and you can send me the coordinates so I will know that you were able to do it. That's a pretty fast exercise for those who's able to get the request. And I will read the questions as well. Edward, the exercise is to send me the coordinates of the Partnov Computer School using this API. Anwar, this session is recording. Yeah, I got your point. Yeah, probably will do that. Alright, I see the coordinates of the Partnov Computer School. Thank you, Yuri. Thank you, Svetlana. So guys, you have to, one little tip, you don't have to find the address. You can really use the name of the location you want to find. Not only address, even the name of the organization will work too. And that's a hint for you, Edward. All right, thank you, Rena. Guys, I'm still waiting for the responses of coordinates of partner of computer school. If you're able to make a request through Postman, please send me the coordinates in the chat. Vladimir, thank you. That should be, yeah. So I have a couple of answers. Oh, somebody sent me the whole response. That's okay. Thank you, Vitaly. Thank you, Evgenia, Margarita, Anvar. Monta, you sent me something, but it's not the whole answer. There has to be two variables. So you're almost there. There's one more missing. Edward, good job. Anwar, you're not missing anything. You're good. So the exercise was to change the value of the parameter of the API request to Portnoy computer school and execute this particular request with the same API key, because it's our key. Each time we performing the request, we have to provide all the information for this request. In this case, we have to authorize our request with the key, because server doesn't know about it, but we authorized. So when we put the name of the organization here as a parameter, it gives us the actual formatted address and the location. So these coordinates is actually the coordinates of the school. Yeah, somebody I think tried to Google the address. It also works. Monta, thank you. I have two of the variables. Alexander, thank you. Dmitry, good job. So that's a good practice. Like we use public API of the Google. We get the API key for the authorization. We used parameters to get different information from that API. And somebody actually successfully did that. So the thing is about API key, that this is a sensitive information. Everyone who has that key can actually perform the request from your name. So I gotta expose my key right now, but don't worry, I will regenerate it. But just for your future work, when you will do it in organization, you have to be careful with the API keys which developers provide for you, so that's security sensitive information. So in order to hide this information from the bad guys, actually, we have to hide it somewhere. And Postman provides that instrument to hide the sensitive information. It has the environments. So we can see the drop-down list here. And you already can see that my environment is created here, but in your case it will be no environment. So environment can store the variables which you want to share across all of your requests, and those will be hidden and secured for your environments that you created. So let's do it. Let's create the environment and hide the variable here. So I am going to, because I already have them. So clicking on this gear here, the gear sign, which said manage environments. Click on it. In your case, it's probably going to be no environment. I will delete mine as well. So we will have the same state. So here is, I think that's what you see on your screen. Create an environment. Give environment a name. So I will say my environment. And here's already, we can actually manage our keys here. But let's just add it without doing anything. So after adding, we can see that it's actually added, and we can see that we can manage our environment here. So let's see if you can select it from the drop-down list. Also, after creating, we can select our environment. Now, after environment is created, we're still clicking on the gear here. We're gonna manage our environments. Click on the name of the environment. And we want to add a key and a value which will be shared across our request. So we can use that environmental variable. So let's call it Google API key, right? And the value has to be the value of the key you have in your system, right? So let's copy that from the console or from the request you already made, or actually from here. I will copy it from the request. That will be easier. So I'm copying my key from the parameters. Go to manage environments. Click on the environment. Create a new variable called Google API key, and paste the value of the key. So now, after adding that value, I'll be able to see it here. So my environment right now has a key with the value, which I can use in the future. So now, instead of pasting value here, I can do double brace and select the variable from the environment. So this variable I just created in the environment, and it has to be here in the suggestions after double brace. And I can see what is the value of this variable, and I can see the scope that is environmental variable. So I can click, and now instead of sensitive information that I got from my Google Cloud account, I only can see the variable name, which I just created in the environment. So if I'll try to send the request, wow, it succeeded. It's also 200 OK, and it's been using the key from the variable, from the environmental variable. There is a variable, but not key. Right, for Anwar it looks different. Anwar just use the key instead of variable. It's still a key value pair, so I don't know why it's different. It's a variable. In any case, it has to be key value pair. Guys, please type in the chat if you're able to hide the sensitive information into environment, the way I explain it. Anwar, can you use, what is that, variable? So please type in variable name Google API key, and then the value of the API key you have. Svetlana, thank you. Edward, good job. Margarita, good job. So the idea of this part is to hide sensitive information into environment and still be able to execute the request. Dmitry, thank you. Anwar, were you able to create the environment variable, even it's a different name of it? In your case, I see variable, then initial, variable, yeah. Initial. I assume, Anwar, you have a Mac instead of Windows. That's probably why, but use the Windows. Different version of it. But still, try to use, yeah, put key as a current value of it. Thank you, Stas. Good catch. Put the value of your API key into current value. I think you have 3 columns there. That's why. Stas, were you able to get the response? Yuri, thank you. Yeah, thank you, Stas. Marina, thank you. Muhammad, you still have a problem or you resolve the issue? And Evgenia, so you got the solution, right? You can paste the value of the API key into current value. Irina, please explain your problem. Evgenia, so you done or you don't have the response? Anwar, then you have to use double brace and select the name of the variable you created in the parameter section of your request. But I can't see it on the postman. You can't see the variable you created in the environment, so you probably forgot to select the environment. You have to select the environment from the drop-down list here. So after that, you will be able to double brace. And now it doesn't show to me as well. Interesting. Okay, yeah. So yeah, try to type it a couple of times. It has to show you the suggestions for your variables. Mohammed, don't worry. We will ramp you up after the class. Don't worry. Follow the class and try to understand what's going on next. I do not have double brace. I can either delete, either add. Irina, you probably typing the double brace in the wrong section. So we're talking about, so I already closed the manage API, the manage environment here. So here is the parameters of the request. So you have to type double brace here. Anwar, it's not the key, it's a value. Right, so key is key. It's the name of the parameter for the request, and value is the name of the variable you created. I might try to do it several times. Has to be there. Try to just type it explicitly Google API key, so maybe it will pick up the key. So guys, let's move on. I can see that many of you already successfully done with the exercise. So let's move on to the slides. So now we were able to hide the variables into the environment. So we've been able to create the project, enable the API, and get the API key in the Google console. In Postman, we have to create the collection, make a request to geocode, and store Google key to environment variables. So what we did not yet is we didn't create the collection. So here is the Postman window. Here we can see the like a folder with the plus sign, and it says new collection. So collection is pretty much as a folder, but it has a little bit different meaning in the Postman. So let's create a collection. Click on the new collection button, give it a collection name, my first collection. We will give no description here, just empty, and the button create. My first collection is here. And now after, so we have like a tab here with our first request. So it's like a browser. I can click on plus sign and new tab is created, right? So when we created all of the above here, that's our tab, that's our first request we created, and it has a dot here. So when the dot is, so this new tab has no dot, right? Where the cross sign is. That means some new changes have been made, but we didn't save it. So we want to save them into our collection. So we're not clicking on the save button, we're clicking on this triangle, the drop down menu, and saved as. So we can give our request a name, and I can say geocode request, right? Don't give any description here, and we're going to select the collection that we just created. So we have to scroll, and in your case it just will show up there. I have a lot of collections, so I will scroll up to my first collection. After I select the collection I want to save it in, then I save it to my first collection. Click. So now if I will click on my first collection, my request will be here. I will click on it, I will click on send, and I'll see it's still working, which is awesome, because we're gonna move further. Next thing is the exercise. We already did that, and important part that we already kind of covered a little bit, that especially with the public API. So remember, the business is trying to monetize their services. They're trying to earn money out of it, and they don't want to share the APIs with the rest of the world for free. This is why they're using authentication and authorization for their services. And the REST API has several implementations of authorization. So we can see that the talking is there. We can use just basic credentials, like you logging to your Facebook account, for example, login and password. So that's a basic authentication. Also, we have 2O authorization, so we will get familiar with those as well. And many of these, I will paste this link in the chat. So Postman support all of the existing type of authorizations. This is why Postman is so awesome. That's why we have another exercise where we will practice to use authorization here. So as I said, this is official documentation of the Postman. So sometimes APIs require no authorization. They're just completely free and not secure or whatever you name it. Some of them require just talking, really similar to the API we just used. Also, only one sequence of the characters required to be provided for the authorization. So basic authorization is when we just saying the Google, not Google, well, just the username and password. Links, yes, chat, here. So yeah, don't worry about links. I will post it on the page as well. So basic authorization when we using password and the username, just regular one like any other website. So digest, and yeah, this one. So in some cases, authorization is more complex. It requires several keys and secrets in order to be authorized. But usually when you reading the documentation of the API, it says which type of authorization it's using. So we have another API which we're gonna practice with, and we're gonna learn how to authorize our requests to it. It has a version 2, and yes, some of them we'll cover in this course. Some of them are not. So let's move on. Guys, another exercise. So there is a Twitter public API which we're gonna use. So we might want to create a similar kind of process, like create an application on the Twitter, the project, and then the Twitter will give us an API key which we can use for our requests. So let me paste this link here in the chat. So first let's follow me, and then we will try to make it as slower as we can so everybody can get it how to create this project. I think Twitter is easier than Google, so let's do it. So after we clicked on the link, we on the developer page of the Twitter, where the documentation and other instruments are presented for the developers. So since you already have the account on Twitter, you can log in. After you log in, you can have a drop-down list with your login name, and in the drop-down list you can navigate to the apps. So I do have an app, so let me remove it. So when you don't have any apps, you will see the page like this. Now we have to create an app. We have to give it a name, and it has to be sort of unique one, right? After that, we have to give the application description, which is required. So what if we will just say test, and this is our test app. So whatever the URL has to be provided. So you can see that which fields are required. So you have to provide the information for your app here. Then we pass in the fields which is not required and tell us how this app will be used. This is for test. I think that's a pretty good description. And something is missing. That's why it doesn't give me what is missing. Required. Must be 100 characters, right? Got it. So here, this field is 100 characters, guys. That was the thing. So yellow field is fine. Was the length of the description. So after all fields are satisfied, so it's the name of the app, application description, and how the application will be used, we click on create. So here we have to confirm that we agreed with all of the policies here, and we click on create. Application created. Edward, probably yes, you have to apply for a dev account. So guys, right now please start to create your app in the Twitter dashboard. As the result, you have to have application created and you have to have application details here. Please post in the chat if you're ready. Mohammed, you have to have Twitter account as a prerequisite for this class. And you have to be signed in the Twitter. As a result, under the Apps section of your dashboard, you have to have application created with app ID and details. Anwar, thank you. Some of you will have application under review, probably longer than expected, so don't worry about that. You still, once the application will be approved, you will be able to perform the class exercise. Mohammed, the app section is under the drop-down list here. You can see it on the screen. Sergey done. Dariana, are you logged in the developers page on Twitter? And you don't have app section. Interesting. You have a different version of Twitter. Application. Yuri, thank you. So this is a developers page, and it has to have drop-down list here under your account. You have to have the app section. It's a developer.twitter.com. Dmitry, I was able to create developer access pretty fast. Alright, Vladimir. I should put here, we need to test it, website URL. Alexander, try to use one of your website URL you know. Or maybe you have your own website or something. Apply and search button. What is apply button, Mohammed? Is it apply for developer account? Press I will ask you to supply somewhere there. Margarita, any website URL you have in mind that you're probably testing or contributing to? Yes, whoever apply to the dev account, click on that and apply for the dev account. Do you know where the apps can be? Some of you have a verification problems, probably because I never applied for a developer account. Somehow it works for me. Irina, try to provide the valid phone number. No calls. Wait some. Give it some time. Maybe should receive soon. Edward, alright. So for some of you, the application review is pending. For some of you, verification is pending. So don't worry about that. Even the class will over, we will go through it. So after all of the above will be done, we will have Vladimir's done. Thank you, Vladimir. So once we will be verified and the account will be approved and verification will be passed, we will have an application here under our app section, and our app will have a ID. So we go into details of our app, and we will have keys and tokens section. So two keys we already have. So this is API key and API secret. Also, we need this one, the access token and the access secret. So we click on create button. So we have two more sequences of characters, which are the access and access token secret. So these four parameters we're going to use for our authorization. And now we have another API which we're gonna use. So first we created the app. So for some of you it's still pending, don't worry about that, we will create it later. Then we just created token and secret in the sections of keys and tokens. then we going to read the documentation of one of the APIs we're going to use. I'm posting that in the chat. So the official documentation of Twitter APIs. So it has the different sections here on the left. So we are interested in accounts and users and the API related to follow, search, and get users. Clicking on that, we're actually already here. Here we have a list of APIs available on this section, available for follow, search, and get users. So we are interested in the get users show. So there's an API reference tab. We click on that and users show here. So the link I provided is already like leading you to here. Julia, don't worry, your account will be verified soon, so you will be able to perform this. This API has a resource URL, so we have information about that. We know that this is a API which are enable the get method. Returns the variety of information about the user specified by the required user ID and screen name. So we have two required parameters. We also know that. So resource information, response format JSON, rate limited, no, yes, requires authentication, yes. And the bandwidth which is allowed for this API, so 900 requests per 15-minute window. So as I said, all commercial like APIs, they have a limitation on many things, and in this case it's 900 requests. Parameters, so user ID, screen name, and include entities. So include entities is optional. Two parameters are required, so we have to provide it in order to get the successful request. And also documentation provided an example request. Cool, so we can just copy it. And no, not execute. I just want to show how we're gonna use example request to understand how it works. So I used sort of, can you see it actually? Yes, you can see it. All right, let me zoom a little bit. So we already used the curl for our request. So curl has parameters like double dash request. We know that it's a get verb. We're providing URL, question mark, name of the parameter, equal value of the parameter. And then double dash header. So we're providing headers. All our authorization information is going to be in header. So remember how the request looks like. You remember recalling the previous class and remember how the envelopes look like. So we have to give the address, the parameters, and the headers. And we see that this is all authorization and it's probably version 1 because it says here, right? OS version 1.0. In this case, we know what to use in Postman in order to perform this request. So first is URL. I'm copying it, right? With the screen name actually. Copy. And I'm gonna create a new tab and paste it here. I will paste it in the chat as well. But you have to copy and paste it in the address in the URI here. If I will click on params here, this parameter screen name is here already pre-populated with the value. So Postman is able to understand the parameters in the URI and kind of pre-populate the key and values for you already. Going back to the notepad, so what is next? Next is only authorization part. So remember we had a Twitter app which already provided us 4 sequences which will be used for this request. So I'm going to authorization section here. I'm clicking on it. And I need to select the type of our authorization. So we know that this is all authorization 1.0 here. Click on it. And as we can see, something is pre-populated here for some reason. So for you, it's probably going to be empty. Right? So I'm going back to my Twitter developers account under the keys and tokens section, and I'm going to copy and paste each of these values. So API key, selecting it, going back to my Postman, paste it here, going back, copy, carefully copying without spaces, the API secret key. Now access token, that's the third one. And the last one is access token secret. For values provided, the required parameter provided, URL provided. So let's try to execute it and see if it works. I can see that this is 200 OK time, and I can see the JSON response. So, sorry. So we can see that our request is successful. So I'm expecting anyone who got the application approved and stuff, please type in the chat if you were able to populate the fields of the requests and execute it. Let's wait for a couple of minutes. So it's pretty similar to our previous exercise where we requested information from Google, but in this case we have to provide 4 different tokens and secrets for the request. Guys, if you have any issues, also type in the chat. I will be trying to resolve it. Could not authenticate you, right? Authorization required, no problem yet. The account under review. Authorization required, could not authenticate you. Sergey, you're probably really close to the success. Check your keys, and maybe you copy it with the spaces or something. So make sure you correctly copied it from the page. So if I will put space here, I'll send it, and I'll get the same. So if the keys are incorrect, then it's probably the case. If you were able to see the keys in the app section, then you are really close to success. Just make sure you copy it correctly. Yeah, I think we're gonna extend our class for, I don't know for how much, but we have to finish it by today, guys. Or at least by the next class. So don't worry about if you cannot finish it right away. So some accounts will be approved and stuff, but we all gonna be done by the next class. That's for sure. Alright guys, I have 25 people in the class. Please everyone formulate your problem, your current status with this Twitter app. And let me know where you're at right now. What is your status? Not the particular problem, but just where you at, where you blocked with. So I will try to understand how many times we need to fix that. Margarita, thank you very much. 200, okay. Application under review, application under review. Sergey has to be only these four values. Did you copy the link correctly? URI is correct. And this is get request, and you choose the right authorization type. So it's 1.0. Application under review, just get account, starting creating app. Julia, okay, you can do it today, I guess. Add credentials, recheck them, but still get for one. Add options. Block the alright. So the problem number one is account verification and application approval. Record Dmitry, okay. Alright, so we go and move forward since we don't know how fast the approval gonna happen. So for me it was instantly, right? You just saw it on the screen. So the idea of this exercise was to use Twitter API because it required the authorization 1.0, and we got familiar how the public API is providing that information to the customers. So in our case, we created the tested app. Some of you didn't approve yet, but you will be very soon, I hope. And this is how public API works. So you have to verify your account in order to prevent any malicious activity on your account. So as long as we're not going to do anything crazy here, so we're all gonna be approved soon. This API is giving the information about account, and the main important thing is the body and the user ID. So we're providing the Twitter account name, which is screen name, what you see on the actual web application, but we're getting the ID of this user. So again, it's a resource representation. So as long as the user represented in the system as the resource or an object, every edge object also has to have its own ID and unique ID. So I think this example is from Twitter development account. As we can see, we can read a lot of information here, everything which is related to the Twitter account. But our concern was to get the user ID. So let's move on. And an exercise was to get the president's Twitter account. So we know that one of the presidents really liked his Twitter. So if we will say instead of the name of the account from the example, we can use whatever account you know, and you can get the information about this account. So as we can see that all information about Twitter account is here, and this is how the account of the president looks like. The thing is also each account has its own ID, so we know how to get this information using API. And from the documentation, all of the APIs which are integrated in the Twitter platform is very well documented and explained, so you can use it for your further research or work actually. The next topic is to write a test. So let's move over to this section, and we will try to write our first test in Postman. So again, I'm referring to the official Postman documentation. Creating a test is pretty simple when you're using snippets. So snippets is a sort of the template which are already predefined for you, and you can reuse it across all of your requests. But writing a Postman test is actually scripting and using the JavaScript. So for those who are really familiar with JavaScript, of course, it's a piece of cake, right? Just to code in the JavaScript. I know some of you are already good at coding, some of them are not. Still, Postman allows to ramp up quickly, even for people who don't really familiar with the coding. And as you can see, the examples of tests are pretty much the English language. So we like reading it right away. So postman.test, and this is the name of the test. Response is okay. What is the response of okay? We have to describe the function, and the function said that postman that response has to have the status 200 okay, right? So this piece of code stands for the test, and it's pretty human readable, and we will learn how to actually change them or add it to our environment. So in Postman there's a test section which is next to the authorization where we put our keys. So we're clicking on the tests, and the snippets, which is a very handy tool of Postman, here. So snippets are here, and you can scroll down and read it and understand what is that. So let's use the status code. Code is 200. That's a pretty self-explanatory description of the snippet. If I will click on it, it will automatically generate the test for me. And let's execute our request again and make sure that the test was executed as well. So after all of this code is here. I'm clicking next, send, and in the response section, there's a body, cookies, headers, and now we have the test results, and we can see that 1 out of 1. Clicking on it, and we can see that our test is pass, and status code is 200 is actually the name of our test. So here, let's break our test. So the first approach to test your own test is to break it actually. So let's see if it will break. First thing, let's change the name of the test. This is the name of the test in between double quotes, and I will name it our first test. But I want to expect that the code will be actually 400. So 400 is when the API has a problem or our authorization is a problem or something else. So that's a good example. I'm expecting that API will be 200, but in the test I put 400. So I'm trying to break my own test, make it not valid for the actual API. So I'm sending this request again. And now something got failed actually. So our first test, which is the actual name of the test I just created, has the assertion error. And assertion error is expected response to have status 400, but we got 200. So very self-explanatory description of the test, giving us understanding what happened and what is wrong in the test or with the API. So that's a handy tool of Postman. Write the test right here without knowing any environments or development tools. Just use the Postman itself and some already predefined scripting, which is snippets. Tweak it a little bit and you can use it for your testing. Next topic will be, so here we want to write 5 tests, and some of them are pretty simple as snippet, and some of them I will show you what actually can be used also. First 4 tests are pretty simple. They all come from the snippets or the documentation. So check if response code is 200. We already done that. Response should be okay to process. Let's look at, I think that has to be in documentation. Alright, so I found it here in the examples. In official docs, did I post it? I'll paste in the link in the chat. So the official docs has the example of the test, which checking if the response was okay to process. What it's actually doing, it's checking if response has no error. So Postman response has to not be error. Postman response to have JSON body. Of course, if the API is REST, like 99% the body will be in JSON format. Or we can change it to whatever. Postman response has not to have body includes the error. So we have 3 assertions here. That overall response doesn't have any errors. The body of the response is in JSON format and doesn't have any error keys, which sometimes happening. So I'm just copy the whole code here, paste it in my test section. So I want to change it back to 200, and I can leave the description as is. Executing the request again. So 2 tests pass. That's good. What is next? JSON response includes specific key followers count. I will check if it's here or in the snippets. Equal to string. I assume this is one of these. Check. So I believe this is one of this, but I will check 1 second. All of these snippets actually can be reused and modified a little bit, but I just want to make sure that we'll cover the exact test that I prepared for today. Yep. Okay, so how we can reuse the snippet? So we can remove the middle section, which actually have the code, and use expectations, which are in the Postman library. So typing pm expect, and in the braces we have response.json. So we expect something in the JSON response of our response, right? So that's the first line here. That's our assertion. We have to say what we're expecting. We have to expect to include the keys, and here we have to say what is exactly the key we're expecting. So let's go back to the body of the response we already have, and let's say we're expecting that the screen name will be presented, which is straightforward, right? Because that's the API key. So this is it. This is our third test. So we're sending our request, and 3 of 3 tests being successful. So body is correct is the wrong name of the test, so we have to say that expected key is presented, right? So this line said we're expecting something in our JSON response, and we're expecting what? That response include keys, and giving the key name inside this double quotes. Next test. JSON values include specific value. Great again, so we're talking about the president's account, probably that value is there. So we can copy this, paste it here, remove because it's a different scenario. Expected value is presented. So again, we expecting something, then we use pm expect. Where we expecting? In pm response text. So the response of the API can be textified and presented not as a JSON, but just a string. So we're just looking for a specific value in that string. And also to include. And this is the line we are expecting to have there, right? Oops, like this. And syntax. So when I don't see, so if I will remove this, the missing semicolon information was gonna be. So it will give me a suggestion what is actually missing in the code. Semicolon there. Sending request. Alright, expected value is presented. That's the name of our test. Assertion error, expected blah blah blah. And that's a different error. Alright, so we have to check out why it's failing. Let's see the body actually. Maybe the body has changed. I will be not surprised if something got changed on the actual response. So let's look for United States, because it's definitely here, right? Paste it. Try it. So we changed the value that we're expecting to be presented and sending this request. Alright, now 4 tests succeeded. So the actual first, our assumption was wrong. That value was not there. We changed it to the United States and now it succeeded. Let's move on. And that's a little bit more trickier, but still, then later you can use all of these tests in your actual test and practice to modify it to validate the APIs you're using. Let's copy it again, paste it, remove. And this one will verify that a specific header is presented. That is also a very important validation. We want to know that some of the headers are there, and we want to verify that. So first thing, we need to get all the headers from the response. So we asking PM response headers, and we're gonna get them. Let's leave it without any name of the header. But what I want to explain here is we're gonna store all the headers in some specific variable. So in JavaScript, variable starts with the var. So we defining what is actually status, for example, equalize. So when we asking Postman for the response and its headers, and we're using the method get, and we're trying to get the actual header with some specific name. So let's say header name here. And that object will be stored in variable status. So now status have the value of the method get, which we can reuse later. So if I will do something with the status now I will deal with the actual header with the specific name we provided here. Now the assertion we're gonna make, right? So again, Postman expect, and expecting something in that status header. What we're expecting? We're expecting that it will include a specific value. And if we will go to the header section here, that's the headers of our response. And we can see that this is also the key value pair. Each header has its name and its value. So in this case, let's use the content type header, which is stating for the content of the response. So it's preparing our client for the information which is happening after the headers, which is in the body. And it's saying that, content type was going to be in JSON format. And this is the encoding system UTF-8. So usually in manual tests, it's not really handy, but for automation tests, we probably want to prepare our test code for knowing what type of content is in the body. So let's just say here content type, and that's it. I call it status variable because we can also expect, sorry, my bad. The content type is the key, right? So it has to be here. And this is the value. Application JSON, or as long as we including, so we can use only application JSON here. And I will change the name of the variable content type, right? And this is header. So one more time. First line is the creation of the variable, which will be equal to the, let's say equal, but it's actually assigning. So we're assigning the value of the method get here. And get method will return the object which is header from the headers of the response. So it actually will return me this as the object in JavaScript. And we're expecting that in this header we will have, again, we need to change the status variable here. Right. So so our header will include this string here, which we put here, right? So content type is the key of the header, and application JSON is the value. Send it. All 5 tests are passed, which means status was 200. That's what we explained here. Our response doesn't have any errors. Our response is in JSON format. JSON actually don't have any error keys inside it. United States value is presented there. Screen name key is presented there. And we also check the headers. So this 5 test is pretty standard test across all of the API tests. So you can copy them, you can slightly modify them, and you can cover the APIs you actually need to test in your organization or in your practice, in your future homework or something. So this is gonna be posted somewhere in our information page. So we have a red dot here, so we want to save it in our collection. My first collection will work. My first collection, and save it to my first collection. So we have our first request to Google, and second request is 5 tests to Twitter API, and 5 tests are actually succeeded. Let's move further. So the variables. So why we created environment variables in our Postman? Because we want to share them, we want to reuse them in the future. And the final exercise for this class was to actually make a chain of 4 requests, which will use shared variables. All sensitive information is going to be hidden in the environmental variables. And some of the requests will be reusing the previous information. So what I'm saying is, we just tried 2 APIs today, but we're gonna try 4 of them. And each request, further request, will reuse the information from the previous one. So overall, it's gonna be 4 requests, and the final result of the API, final response, will have to have information from all of the 3 one. So this is called chaining request, and that's another feature of the Postman, that we have the shared information across the requests, and we can create a chain of requests which will allow us to perform more comprehensive and more complex tests for our environments. But because we didn't approve our apps, we probably will be not able to do it today. But through the week, maybe we will cover that as well. Now I'm reading the questions. Yeah, Anwar, probably if your dev app doesn't approve yet, you will not get any data. Right. So next thing is Twitter also have the API which can send messages. We're gonna cover that later. And since we already create our first collection, which is pretty much the folder idea, but the folder with some specific components which we can reuse, and they are actually aligned with the feature of the Postman. So every tool within Postman is launched by the Postman collection format. And first, the main purpose of that we can document our APIs using collection. So once we store all of the available requests with the test and with the examples of body and the headers, that can be published somewhere and documented as a description of your API, which is really important for the development process. So publishing is an API collection and can be done via the run in the Postman button embedded with the publisher side. So everything you're doing here in this, like the application, it's actually synchronized with the already certain environment on the web. So you can quickly modify the documentation for the API, which is pretty handy. We will probably practice with that as well. Official documentation. So this is how the published documentation looks like. It's pretty much like we just saw on the Twitter, on the Google. So we want to get familiar with the API, and documentation and examples should be presented in order to make it clear for us how to use it. So your collection are documented with folders, requests, responses, parameters, code snippets, environments, and examples. That's pretty handy. So everything you need to know about API behavior can be first created in the Postman, then published on the web, and the access can be given to only allowed persons. So if developer developing something, you don't want to publish it to everyone, right? Certain customization is available, so this already like a commercial features of the Postman, which we are not really interested in. Let me paste it in the chat. You can read it later. Because sometimes maybe developers once ask testers go to the documentation to read it, so you know that Postman supports that. Monitoring. So API monitoring is the scheduled service to run a Postman collection, reporting results based on the test embedded in the collection and reported in the user Postman dashboard. Again, eventually we're not gonna execute the request manually. It's only during the development process of the test suite or the actual environment. We want to have certain station or cloud or you name it to execute the request for us on the certain like a regular basis. So we want to have a trend of the results and we want to run it 24/7 without weekends and night times. So this is where the monitoring helps us. It's certain automation tool which is embedded in the Postman environment, in the Postman product. So it also has a free tier and the commercial tier for the enterprises. We will probably practice with that as well. So monitoring is something which is automatically executing the requests and giving back the status and the reports of it. Let's see what the official documentation is saying. I want to show you the graphs, but they are not there. All right. Don't worry, we will walk through this, I hope. So yeah, each Postman user gets 1,000 monitoring calls per month. So you can schedule something like one per hour or something, and the collection you created in the Postman will execute the request you created and the tests on a regular basis without any of your interaction. You don't have to launch application or something. It will automatically do it for you and give you the results, which is pretty handy for the commercial organizations as well. Documentation. So as I said, the API documentation publish the shareable, customized view of the API Postman collection, helping developers onboard quickly to the API. So instead of explaining you how it works, you just give you a link to the documentation. You go through it. You can integrate it with your Postman client, and you can quickly understand what is going on with the behavior of the API. We already kind of covered that. So mocking, developers can create a mock server. You probably heard it, and it's going to be the interview question. So what techniques you're going to use for testing APIs? You can start with mocking, which is creating a mock server, and it will reply back with predefined response. So you have to provide a pair with the request and response, and the mock server will reply with predefined values. So it's not actually a real API response, it's a mocked API response. But it can help developer and tester to start writing their code without actually releasing the version of the API. So mocks can help to isolate specific services from outside of the world and only test isolated area of that service, or deleted services, without chaining them into production and stuff. So mocking is a technique which is implemented in Postman already, so you don't have to create any specific environment in these additional hardware or software. Mocking is there already for you. Mocks. So it's setting up the mock server actually, which will have the collection of pairs of request response. And as you can see, when you click on create new, the mock server is here. So it's one of the section of the actually building blocks. So I'll also share this. We're not going to cover this in very big detail, so mocking is something more advanced. And debugging. So every time we executed our request here, we mainly based on our expectations and assertions here on the response section of the application. But it also have the developer show Postman console. So the developer section and Postman console is the instrument for actually debugging and understanding what is wrong with the responses or with the tests. So let's break our test and say that something weird here, which is definitely will be not there in the value. So yes, we have a fail, but we also have the Postman console. And let's see, it will actually explain one second. Okay. Okay, so it doesn't want to give me the expected and actual results. What we can do is we can just break the syntax, for example. Alright, so syntax doesn't complain. So from JavaScript point of view, everything is good here. But debugging is, so something failed here. It's probably not example, I still didn't break it. Yeah, let's break it more then. Like without include. Right. Nope. Include. Yeah, sometimes to break is harder than to build actually. Alright, object tested must be an array. That's maybe a good one. No. Alright, I'm not prepared for the breaking of my own test, guys. So, but in fact, the Postman console is gonna be helpful to go through the request you're making and understand the reason of the failure. Maybe we'll see it in the future, how the console can help. Also, it stores your requests here in like a history, so you can go through them and see, okay, some value change in this request, we go on to the next one and kind of compare the results and use the console. So another instrument of debugging and fixing your own test. I'm out of slides, guys, so let's decide what we're gonna do next, because very little amount of people was able to have the response from the Twitter app. Maybe it was only one person. Alright, again guys, let's